Good morning, and welcome to our read aloud. We're going to continue on with Chapter 2 in Scythe by Neal Shusterman. If you remember, we met the character Rowan in this chapter, and he was at school, and his path crossed paths with a scythe, and this scythe was there to glean the star football player. And Rowan, in a moment of what I would consider great courage, says that he will stay with the football player, and he held his hand while this young man was gleaned. And that is sort of where we left things. Here we go. The slap was just as jarring as the electric shock from the gleaning, even more so because Rowan wasn't expecting it. It came just before lunch as he was standing at his locker and flew in with such force it knocked him back, making a row of lockers resound like a steel drum. You were there and you didn't stop it. Mara Pavlik's eyes flared with grief and righteous indignation. She looked ready to reach up his nostrils with her long nails and extract his brain. You let him die! Mara had been Cole's girlfriend for over a year. Like Cole, she was highly popular, and as such would actively avoid any interaction with sophomore rabble such as Rowan. But these were extraordinary circumstances. It wasn't like that, Rowan managed to blurt out before she swung again. This time he deflected her hand. She broke a nail, but she didn't seem to care. If nothing else, Cole's gleaning had given her perspective. It was exactly like that. You went in there to watch him die. Others had begun to gather, drawn as more are to the scent of conflict. He looked to the crowd for a sympathetic face, someone who might take his side, Rowan's side. But all he saw in the faces of his classmates was communal disdain. Mara was speaking and slapping for every single one of them. This is not what Rowan had expected. Not that he wanted pats on the back for coming to Cole's aid in his last moments, but he wasn't expecting such an unthinkable accusation. What, are you nuts? Rowan shouted at her, at all of them. You can't stop a scythe from gleaning. I don't care, she wailed. You could have done something, but all you did was watch. I did do something. I held his hand. She slammed him back into the locker with more strength than he thought she could possibly have. You're lying. He would never hold your hand. He would never touch any part of you. And then, I should have held his hand. Around them, the other kids scowled and whispered things that they clearly wanted Rowan to hear. I saw him walking in the hall with the scythe like they were best buddies. They came in the school together this morning. I heard he gave the scythe Cole's name to glean. Someone told me he actually helped with the gleaning. He stormed to the obnoxious kid who made the last accusation. Ralphie, something or other. Heard from who? No one else was in that room, you moron, said Rowan. But it didn't matter. Rumors adhered to no logic but their own. Don't you get it? I didn't help the scythe. I helped Cole, Rowan insisted. Yeah, helped him into the grave, someone said, and everyone else grumbled in agreement. It was no use. He had been tried and convicted, and the more he denied it, the more convinced they would be of his guilt. They didn't need his act of courage. What they needed was someone to blame, someone to hate. They couldn't take their wrath out on the scythe, but Rowan Damisch was the perfect candidate. I'll bet he got immunity for helping, a kid said. A kid who'd always been his friend. I didn't. Good, said Mara with absolute contempt. Then I hope the next scythe comes for you. I hope you're gleaned next, Rowan Damisch. He knew she meant it, not just in the moment, but forever. And if the scythe did come for him, she would relish the knowledge of his death. It was a darkly sobering thought that there were people in the world who actively wished him dead. It was one thing not to be noticed. It was something else entirely to be the repository of an entire school's hate and loathing. Only did the scythe's warning come back to him, that he would receive no kindness for what he had done for Cole. The scythe had been right, and he hated the scythe for it, just as everyone else hated Rowan.